A few quick announcements and then we're going to get started. So first off, homework assignments. I've heard from most of you. So your selfie with your textbook and your introduction. If you sent me your homework, I'm going to respond. So if you sent it and I didn't respond, then that means for some reason I didn't get it. So I just ask that you send it to me again if I didn't respond. If you haven't done it yet, please remember to do so. Sometimes the question comes up, what happens? That's fine. Yep, that's good. You can send it to me when you get your book. Sometimes, okay, so part of the problem with going online, technology is great when it works, right? The problem is technology doesn't always work. So the question comes up, what happens if I lose power? What happens if you lose internet? Well, rest assured on my end, I've done everything that I can in the event that I lose power. So I'm on a battery backup. So if I lose power, I should revert to my battery backup. I also have my phone like ready to go. I can jump on my mobile hotspot if I lose internet. So I tell you all of this to let you guys know that for some reason, the mystery of Zoom, if I lose connection or internet, you guys don't go anywhere. So I tell you this to tell you that if I just disappear, just hang tight. I'll be back with you as soon as I can, assuming my battery backup doesn't fail or my mobile hotspot's not available. If it happens and we lose power and I can't get back on, we'll just figure it out. We'll make the time up. We'll figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But if I just disappear, hang tight. I know we got storms coming this weekend. I mean, who knows what we have. It seems like we kind of get in a pattern, don't we? Where we get bad weather on the weekends and we're going to kind of get it for the next several weekends. So hopefully it won't affect us during the week. But this time of year, who knows? So again, if I disappear, y'all just hang tight, quiz each other if you have to, and I'll be back on just as soon as I can, and we'll figure it out from there. Also want to remind you guys, I wish I had a few more people on the call. I'm going to wait and make this announcement. We have some more people on. I'm getting some questions about the quiz questions that you guys are taking. So you got the quizzes in the back of the book. I'm sorry, you have the quizzes in each unit at the end of the unit in the textbook. And then you have quizzes in Learn, Test, Pass. So this is what I think about the quizzes. I hope you guys have seen some in the book, some in Learn, Test, Pass. Have you guys been working on those this weekend? I mean, we've really only finished 2 units, but hopefully you've been working on that. I always think of the quizzes in the book, the end of unit quizzes, think of those as like the 101. These test questions seem to be a little bit easier than what's in Learn, Test, Pass. So build yourself up to Learn, Test, Pass. Start with the questions in the textbook at the end of the unit. And once you master those questions, then move on to Learn, Test, Pass. Students have told us, former students have told us that the questions in Learn, Test, Pass are more applicable to what you're going to see on your state exam and my exam, on both of your exams. So if you can do Learn, Test, Pass, pass Learn, Test, Pass quizzes, you're going to be in better position for your end of class exam and your state exam. Guys, I can't stress the importance of Learn, Test, Pass. When former students call Lane and I and say, oh, I passed, I'm a real estate agent, we always say, congratulations, of course, let's celebrate with everybody. But Lane and I always ask, what did you do to pass? And overwhelmingly, we hear 2 responses on a regular basis. On a regular basis, we hear, I studied my butt off and I did everything in Learn, Test, Pass. So Learn, Test, Pass is there for you to use as a tool. You don't have to do anything. Remember, all you have to do is pass my end of class exam, pass the state exam. But the tools that we provide, the textbook and Learn, Test, Pass, are there to meant to help you accomplish those 2 goals. Somebody and I were talking before class. There are a lot of agents out there that'll tell you getting your license is the hardest part of this industry. Getting through this class and getting that state exam is the hardest part of being a real estate agent. So we got to get you through. If you want to be an agent, we got to get you through these tests. And that's why we have those tools. So treat your textbook like the 101 and then move on to learn, test, pass. Somebody asked about prep agent. I've heard other students use it myself. I've never personally gone in and checked it out. So remember, if you're going to Google and you're searching for study tools in Google, just make sure not everything on the internet is good, right? And if you find conflicting information on the internet, make sure you're referring to your textbook, or better yet, your syllabus, to make sure you get the right information. I fear you guys go into Google and saying, how do I pass? And you get all sorts of information. It's the internet. So if you're going that route, if learn, test, pass and the textbook aren't working for you, I'd rather you call Lane or I than go to Google and try to find other sources. How do I feel about retaking quizzes on learn, test, pass? I feel very strongly about that. If you take a quiz on learn, test, pass and you don't pass it the first time, go back and study that unit and then go back and take that quiz. Remember, we talked last week about how you guys can grade yourself, how you know how you're doing along the way. So let me just remind you of that real quick. Somebody's mentioned Travis Everett. We talked about him last week. He has his videos up. Make sure you pay attention to those dates. A lot of students come in and say when they find Travis, they find outdated information. So if you see 2018, I guarantee you something has changed since then. Okay, so just make sure you're always studying the current stuff. So let me, let me just real quick do a quick reminder on how you guys can grade yourself, because I think it's so important that you're grading as you go. And this will give us a good refresher for the T-bar, because we're getting ready to do some real math before tonight is over. So how you grade yourself, again, you guys, there should be no surprises on test day. As long as you're gauging yourself and grading yourself as we go. If you're not passing the quiz at the end of unit 2, how are you going to pass the end of class exam? You guys with me? So don't just take the test and say, oh, I did it, I'll be good to go. Grade yourself. And if you didn't pass it, then you know you need to go back and review that material. So as a refresher for the T-bar, we can use the T-bar to determine our score. And the number that goes on top is the number you got right. And the number that goes on bottom is the total number of questions. So for example, if you were doing the quiz at the end of unit 2, and I just picked that because I have it right here in front of me. What you're solving for is your score, right? That's what you want to know, is how you did. Did you pass the quiz at the end of unit 2? There are 25 questions on that quiz. So the total number of questions, 25. Well, let's say you did this quiz and you got 17 right. When you take 17 and divide it by 25, you get 0.68, which shakes out to a 68%. Is 68% passing? No. What do you need to pass? Who remembers what you need to pass for my exam? You need a 75%. So if you take the end of unit 2 exam and you made a 68%, my question to you is, how are you going to pass the end of class exam? So what should you do with that? Should you throw your arms up and give up? No. That's when you go back and review unit 2. That's when you go back and watch the class recording. You take, go back through the textbook. That's when you fine tune that unit. 75 is passing. 75 is the minimum. If I were you guys, I would shoot for 80, 85, just to give you some wiggle room. Understanding all you need is 75. That's what you want to shoot for. That's fine. But if you want to give yourself some wiggle room, guys, we're getting through this week. Next week, we start getting into some deep stuff. So if you haven't looked at what we covered last week, if you haven't reviewed what we covered last week, please get caught up. I always say your homework every night, every class is twofold. Review where we've been and look at where we're going. And that's how you guys can help utilize your time. Any questions or comments on that? Bunch of sources out there. I just caution you, don't trust everything you see on the internet. And that's not brand new information, right? That's not the first time. I hope you've heard that. Okay. The last little reminder I have, if you come back late from break, if you come on the call after I take attendance, or you come back late from break, just tell me in the chat that you're here. I got to be able to give you credit for being here, and I can't give you credit if I don't know you're here. So if you miss any of the screenshots for attendance, just tell me in the chat, Julie, I'm back. Julie, I'm here. Hi, Julie, something. So some kind of indication so I know to give you credit. Any questions? Am I hitting, did I record? Yes, okay. Who can remind me in the chat? Let's see. Last week, we talked about, we ended in Unit 3, which is where we're getting ready to go right now. And everything in Unit 3 is an encumbrance. And an encumbrance on the property is just something that affects the property. Encumbrances aren't necessarily good or bad. They're just something that affects the property. So everything we talk about in Unit 3 is an encumbrance. And we left introducing the idea of liens. Remind me in the chat, when you see the word lien, what should you see? What's the one word you should think of when you see the word lien? Yeah. When you see the word lien, see the word loan. If you have a lien on your property, you owe somebody some money. Okay, and how do they protect their interest? How do they protect their right to get paid? They put a lien on your property. We're going to get, when we get into Unit 5, we're going to talk about the attorney's responsibility in searching those public records to find all these liens. Please understand, the owner of the property has to pay off all their liens before they can convey it. Before they can sell their property and give their deed to somebody else, they have to pay off all these liens. And how do we trust that they have found everything? That's why we have an attorney to do a thorough search in the public records and a thorough title search. We'll talk more about, I call Unit 5 our attorney's unit. We're going to get about a little attorney and kind of learn more about what they do. So when we left each other last week, we were talking about liens. You have a loan on the property, and there's actually two types of liens. So we were first talking about specific liens, and specific liens are specific to the property. They attach to the property. So for example, the deed of trust in North Carolina, we're just fancy. We call our deed of trust the mortgage. We'll talk all about the mortgage in units 14 and 15. That is a specific lien, meaning it attaches to the property. We also talked about real property taxes and government special assessments. And these are also referred to as superior liens. Superior liens because they get paid first. Whenever you go to convey your property, if you have delinquent property taxes, if you have an unpaid government special assessment, the government is going to make sure they get paid first because they're superior liens. I'm going to talk more about a mechanics lien in just a second. And then, as we mentioned, there's something called a North Carolina commercial real estate broker lien, in which a commercial broker may have the option of protecting their commission by filing a lien. This only applies to commercial, it doesn't apply to residential. And if you're a commercial broker thinking about doing this, it's advised you contact an attorney. So any questions so far? We just got into Unit 3 before we left each other on Thursday. So before we talk more about mechanics liens, I'm going to talk all about a mechanics lien. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. So let's talk about this mechanics lien, because they run a little different game than everybody else. So first off, we have something called the North Carolina Mechanics Lien Law. And the purpose of this law is to give security to anyone that provides labor or furnishes material and involved in the improvement of real property. If you're improving on real property, if you're hiring somebody to improve on your property, then that person is a mechanic. And the mechanics lien law gives the mechanics the opportunity to file a lien so they can collect. If you don't pay them for doing the work, they can collect. And understand, anybody that does labor or furnishes material to improve real property is considered a mechanic. So why don't you guys tell us in the chat, what are some examples of people that would be considered a mechanic? Who is it that provides labor or furnishes material? I got roofing, absolutely. The roofer. Contractor, drywall, plumber, carpenter, any remodel, pool, windows. General contractors are big, right? They kind of do it all. Electrician, builder. All these people we're seeing in the chat add to, I don't know about auto mechanics because it's the improvement of real property, not personal property. Landscaper, surveyor, if they're improving on the property. We're going to talk all about the surveyor in Unit 4. But I think we kind of get the idea, right? They're performing labor or furnishing material in the improvement of real property. So the North Carolina Mechanics Lien Law, if you're doing a commercial or residential project that the cost is $30,000 or more, the law requires that you have a designated lien agent for the project. The lien agent is usually somebody from the title insurance company. We'll talk about title insurance in Unit 5, but they're just the one designated to coordinate the project. I mean, think about it. If you're doing a project of 30,000 or more, you probably got multiple mechanics involved, right? You may have a plumber, an electrician, and a contractor and a drywall, right? You got a big project going on. So the lien agent is just going to help coordinate it and make sure everybody gets paid when the work is done. The exception to this is if you're owner occupied, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you don't have to follow this law, but understand the mechanic can still file a lien if you don't pay them. Anybody that improves the property, if they want the right to collect, they need to file a lien. And all mechanics follow this law. And what the law says is that in order to file the lien, the mechanic has 120 days from when the work finished to file a lien. So you complete the project, thank your mechanic, look him in the eyeball and say, I'll mail you the check, and then you don't do it. And they maybe send you a reminder and another notice and a final notice. But if they want to protect their right to collect, the mechanics have 120 days from when they last provided the work, last provided the labor, to file the lien. All filing the lien does is give them the right to collect. Remember what we just said. You can't convey property with outstanding liens on the property. So before you sell, you have to pay these liens off. And what's one way the mechanic can ensure his place in line? They can file the mechanics lien as long as they do it within 120 days of when the work ended. The mechanic also has the right to bring action to enforce. What do I mean by that? Basically, failure to pay a mechanic, the mechanic can foreclose on you. When can they do that? They have 180 days from when they last finished labor materials. Now, are mechanics actually doing this? I don't know. I think a lot of landscapers are not in the business of foreclosing. I think they're in the business of landscaping, truth be told. So I don't know that a lot of them are actually foreclosing. I think what most of them are doing is filing the lien. But the law says they can. So 120 days to file the lien, 180 days to bring action to enforce, 180 days to foreclose. Bottom line, pay your mechanics. Once you have them come over and do a job for you, pay your mechanics. So I'm going to go back 1 second. I'm going to go back for 1 second. Yeah, Danielle. And you might be on mute. Yep, you're on mute. I see your mouth going, but I got a t-shirt. It says you are on mute. I need to wear my t-shirt to class.
I need that one. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that.
No.
So is that running days? Like it's 120, and then with that being said, there's 3 months afterwards?
No, it's 120 from when the work ended. It's 180 from the work ended. So you only got 60 extra days here, right? In between. Is that what you're asking? Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go back for 1 second. We're going to learn in just a minute. There's something called lien priority. Think about lien priority. You go to convey your property. There's a whole slew of people standing there with their hand out. Before you get paid proceeds from a sale, you got to pay the mortgage. You got to pay delinquent taxes. You got to pay government special assessment. You got to pay mechanics, right? So there's a whole slew of people that have their hand out that want their liens paid, that want to collect money from you. And there's a certain order. Our lien priority tells us the certain order that they're standing in with their hand out. Property taxes and government special assessments, we just said, are superior liens. So who's standing first in line? The government. The government's going to collect their money first. Delinquent taxes. We're going to talk more about taxes at the end of this unit. The government's collecting delinquent taxes. The government's collecting their special assessment. Makes sense to me. The government makes the rules. The government's going to make sure they get paid first. If I made the rules, do you know who would get paid first? Julie. You guys with me? So real property taxes, superior liens are always first. After that, lien priority says all other liens are paid in the order in which they're recorded, except for the mechanics liens. Everybody else is paid in the order in which it's recorded, except for the mechanics liens. The mechanics liens are standing in line in order in which the work began. Their lien is retroactive, not to when they filed the lien, but to when they began a project. Let's think about this for a second. Let's talk this through. Let's say you're building a house. You got a lot of people involved in building a house, right? Even if you don't know, just imagine how many people are involved. You don't have one person out there just building the house. You got people coming from all over. And one of those people you have coming in is the cement truck. The cement truck's coming very early in the process because they got to build or fill your foundation or your slab. So the cement truck is one of the first people there. They come in, they fill your foundation, and they leave. Everybody else, drywall, plumber, electrician, carpenter, tile guy, everybody else comes in and does their thing. One of the last people to complete their project, the cement truck guy comes back because now he's got to pour your driveway. He's got to pour your sidewalk. So if you don't pay the cement truck guy, his lien goes back to when he began the work. When did he begin the work? Way back in the day when he was pouring your foundation. So it's retroactive to when he started. It's really important. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about lien priority in just a minute. But with lien priority, again, it just tells us in what order lien holders are standing there with their hand out. Who gets paid first? And guys, when the money's out, the money's out. People that owe more than their house is worth, now they're facing foreclosure or possible short sale. We'll talk about foreclosure and short sale in units 14 and 15. So the mechanic may not collect, but at least they have the right, at least by filing the lien, that gives them the right to stand in line with their hand out. And hopefully there's enough money to get down the line to them. So y'all put your pencils down for a second. Let's just walk through a couple scenarios together. Pencils down. Let's walk through this. So let's say on August 8th, your hot water heater goes out. You call the hot water heater guy. You say, yeah, my hot water heater went out. He came by, he replaced an element. You're good to go. The work started and ended on August 8th. 120 days, roughly, from August 8th is December 8th. If you don't pay the hot water heater guy, they have until December 8th to file their lien. Everybody with me? And then they have another couple months after that until February 8th to bring action to enforce. Pay the hot water heater guy. This is never a problem. Don't pay him. They're probably going to file a lien. Are they going to foreclose on you? I can't answer that. I just know that they can. Everybody with me so far? The work was done, 120 days to file the lien, 180 days to bring action to enforce. Well, let's say August is a really bad month. And 2 days after your hot water heater goes out, your AC stops working. Call the AC guy, he comes out and he says, yeah, I need a part, I got to order it. He finishes the work on the 16th. His 120-day clock starts 120 days from when the job ended. So when did the job end? When was it complete? August 16th. So now he has 120 days. He has to file that lien by December 16th. He has until February 16th to take action to enforce. To have everybody so far. This is their timeline. They send you a final notice on day 90. You still don't pay. They're going to go down to the courthouse tomorrow and file a lien. It's protecting their right to collect. Okay. So let's say you don't pay them. You say, nope, I'm not going to do it. And you don't pay him. The hot water heater guy files his lien on December 1st. The AC guy files his lien on November 20th. They both filed their liens in time, right? The hot water heater guy had to do it by December 8th. The AC guy had to do it by December 16th. So they both did it on time. They both filed their liens on time. Tell me in a chat, based on what we just learned, when you go to convey your property, who's going to get paid first? Who is going to get paid first? After the government, of course. We're talking just specific about mechanics liens, just these two. Yep. I usually get a 50-50 response. I usually get a 50-50 response, but look at you guys. I think. Yeah, look at you guys go. Who gets paid first? Y'all just told me, the hot water heater guy. Why? Because the mechanics lien is not paid in the order in which it's recorded. It's paid in the order in which the work began. Who started their work first? The hot water heater guy. Does it matter that the AC guy filed his lien first? No, as long as he did it within that 120-day window. Okay, so he filed their liens on time. Hot water heater guy is going to get paid first because he began the work first. It's retroactive. So again, we'll see lien priority again in just a minute. Let's just have a quick conversation before we move on about why this is important. Let's put this in practice, practical situation, if you will. You get the phone call from a seller to list their property. Yay. Somebody calls you and says, will you live? Yes, I'll list your property. Okay, so you schedule your listing appointment. You go over there and you walk in the front door and wow, it smells like fresh paint in here. And your landscaping looks really nice. Did you just have a contractor come out and do it? And the seller says, oh yeah, I wanted to get it sell ready for you. So I did all this work before you came over. Another possible scenario. You go to the listing appointment and you look at the seller and you say, a fresh coat of paint does wonders. If you can paint before I put it on the market, I can get you some more money. If you can do some landscaping work before I put it on the market, I can get you some more money. And the seller says, yeah, I'll do it. So they call the painter and they call the landscaper. Property goes on the market. It goes under contract. It closes all within 120 days. And the seller never pays the mechanic. The mechanic's lien is a specific lien, which means it attaches to what? It attaches to the property, not the person. So now the brand new buyer of their brand new home has a brand new lien put on them. Let's talk about another scenario. I have a solution, never fear. Let's talk about another solution. You have a listing, it goes under contract. While we're under contract, the buyer asks the seller to do repairs. Now we're going to talk all about repairs in units 9 and 10. But just for right now, let's just say that the seller agrees to do repairs. Seller does repairs, never pays the mechanic. We go to closing, property conveys, mechanic files a lien. Congratulations, brand new buyer on your brand new home. You already have a lien on the property. You guys with me? So how can we protect these buyers? How can we protect these new homeowners from unsuspecting mechanics liens? Ask questions. Did you just have it painted? Great. Ask for paid in full invoices. That shows you that the work's been done, right? As a buyer's agent, if you're asking for repairs, request paid in full invoices. That shows us not only that those repairs were paid for, but it also tells us who did it. So if the stuff breaks after closing, your buyer, i.e. at this point, the new owner, knows who to call. In addition to us asking questions and requesting paid in full invoices to prevent this from happening, in addition, the seller will sign something at settlement. They'll sign an affidavit saying that this can't happen. And based on the seller's affidavit, the buyer, the new owner at this point, is going to get title insurance. And title insurance is meant to protect the current owner from errors of the past. So title insurance is going to make seller sign this affidavit that says this can't happen. But what if it does? Well, if it comes up after settlement, title insurance will go after the seller, the former owner, to clear it up. But like, you owe me some money. You told me this wasn't going to happen. You signed this affidavit saying it's going to happen, and it happened. So I want you to take care of it. What if the seller's dead or broke, or they took off and went to Aruba? That's when title insurance is going to protect the new owner. That's what title insurance is for, is to protect the current owner of a property from errors of the past. We're going to talk all about title insurance in Unit 5. Question came in: can the listing agent be sued by the new buyer for not knowing about a lien? Bottom line, you can sue anybody for anything. So can you be sued? Of course you can. We're going to talk about what happens if you get yourself in trouble. What's the judge going to do? They're probably going to ask you some questions. Did you ask the right questions? Did you do your due diligence to find out? Or did you just assume that there could be no liens on the property? You with me? So one thing, I don't know, I live and breathe by checklists. I don't know about you guys. I live and breathe by checklists. And once you affiliate with your firms, they'll help you. You know, here's the list of things you should ask every seller at a listing appointment. Here's the list of questions you should ask every buyer, right? Different things that you can do to help protect yourself. And as an agent, you guys are going to document everything. Y'all write that down. Document everything. What do you document? Everything. Jacqueline, your camera's not on, but I know you're here. Jacqueline asks about searching public records. That's what the attorney does. That's what the attorney does as part of the buyer hires the attorney, and the attorney does a very thorough search. So if there's any mechanics liens on file, of course they're going to come up. But the conversation we're having is, what about the ones that have just done the work and they haven't filed the lien yet? So if it's on record, the attorney's going to find it. That's their job. And that's what we're going to spend all about Unit 5 talking about, is what the attorney's role is in settlement. Any questions about mechanics liens? Let me go back for 1 second, make sure we're good. 120 days from when the work ended to file the lien. The lien is retroactive. They're paid in the order in which the work began. And the mechanics lien is the exception, in that they're not paid in the order in which they're recorded. They're paid in the order in which the work began. Somebody's assuming, I really don't like it when y'all assume, but are we to assume they cost $30,000 for mechanics lien? It needs to cost, no. The only thing we said about the 30,000 or more, if it's the project is 30,000 or more, you have to designate a lien agent. If you're hiring the landscaper to do a $600 job and you don't pay that landscaper, the landscaper can file a lien to collect their $600. You guys with me? We only need that lien agent when your project is $30,000 or more. Okay. So specific liens are one type of liens. They attach to the property. And if they're not found when the property is conveyed, they stay with the property. Okay, so that's why the attorney, that's why the buyer hires the attorney, is to find all of these liens. Another type of lien is called a general lien. General liens attach to the person, and they follow the person wherever they go until they're paid off. It attaches to your real property, your personal property. Any general liens that come up at settlement, the owner will have to pay before they can convey the property, both delinquent and current. So general liens, examples, we have a judgment. A judgment is issued by the court. For some reason, the judge puts a lien on you. They're trying to collect some money. That would be a general lien that follows you everywhere you go until you get that paid off. Personal property tax lien. Failure to pay your personal property taxes will create a lien on you. What are your personal property taxes? Well, we're talking about taxes on the cars, the RV, the boat, the motorcycle. What else do we do for fun? The jet ski, all of your toys. Personal property tax lien. State tax lien. If you don't pay your state taxes, unpaid income taxes will put a lien on the property. Federal tax liens, failure to pay the IRS will put a lien on you, a general lien on you. So specific liens attached to the property, general liens attached to the person, and they have to be paid before you go to apply for a loan for anything, a house, a car, whatever. These loans will come up. And if you're conveying property, if you're selling your property, then the closing attorney will require these to be paid. Unpaid HOA fees. That's a good question. I don't think they would be a specific lien. That's a good question. Can I get back to you on that? That's a good question. Okay. Back in Unit 2, we mentioned a homestead, and we talked about it real quick, so it's okay if you don't remember it, because I said it's my opinion. I think what you need to know about a homestead is in Unit 3, even though they don't talk about it in Unit 3. I think if everybody hear what I'm saying, if you see a test question on a homestead, I think you're going to see that it's an exemption. It's meant to enforce a general judgment lien. So it'd be a general lien that attaches to the person. Remember we said a homestead is just a family land, a life estate for the family home. So I'd be shocked if you guys saw anything about this. Fall off my chair. So here's our lien priority. How do liens get paid? Again, I'm referring to what order are the people standing. You got everybody that you owe money to standing there with their hand out, waiting to collect. And what order do they get to stand in? This is what our lien priority tells us. So the government's always going to get paid first. They're the superior liens, the real property taxes, and the government special assessments. And then after that, after the government's paid, you have all other liens are paid in the order in which they're recorded, except for the mechanics lien that's paid in the order in which the work began. Failure to record the lien means you've lost the right to collect. You want the chance to stand in line with your handout? File the lien. Questions on liens? Okay. So remember, everything we're talking about in Unit 3 is an encumbrance. It's something that affects property. Lien is one thing that affects property. Something else that affects property, another encumbrance, is restrictive covenants. We're going to talk about restrictive covenants in Unit 6. Yes, Diane?
Before we get off the subject of liens, how would, say, like buying a house through, a new house, new construction house, work with like a mechanic's lien? Could that be the same effect, or would it be different since it's like a construction company building it and stuff like that?
I mean, sure, if they don't pay, which, if they want to build another house, right, then they're probably going to pay. But, yeah, absolutely. And that's, the buyers, again, they hire the attorney to make sure that everything's, and, the general contractor, the builder that's doing it might just say, you pay me and I'm going to pay everybody because they all work for me, right? I hire the contracted work. So, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay.
You build a house and you don't pay your contractors. That's probably be the only house you build because your reputation would catch up to you, right? Pretty quickly, right? I mean, it doesn't take long for word like that to get out. Wouldn't that be horrible? File a lien for the entire cost to build the house. Yeah. Could it happen? I mean, I don't know. I'm never going to say something like, oh no, never in a million years. Cause you know what, but that's why we have attorneys to take those extra steps to make sure they're protected. Yep. So another encumbrance or restrictive covenants. Again, we're going to talk all about covenants in Unit 6. And covenants are what we see with like HOAs. So if you have a subdivision with an HOA and the developer creates them when they create the subdivision, and after the developer leaves, the covenants stay. Usually it's enforced. The developer may allow property management company to enforce. Maybe the homeowners enforce. Maybe they run the rules. Sometimes the homeowners take turns being like president and vice president, treasurer, secretary, that kind of thing. It's up to the developer and how they create the covenants. And guys, the whole purpose of covenants is to maintain standards and value in the neighborhood. Some of you are for covenants, some of you are not. That's a personal decision. If you don't want to live next door to the guy that has 10 cars on cinder blocks in the front yard, you may want to consider buying into somewhere with covenants, right? If that doesn't bother you, then maybe this isn't a concern for you. Some covenants, they're all different, and some are more strict than others. Some will tell you like how tall the grass in your front yard can be. Some will tell you what color your front door can be, right? They're all different. They're all more strict than others. Again, we're going to spend more time on covenants in Unit 6. So we'll see this again. Another encumbrance, something else that could affect the property, is something called lis pendens. Lis pendens is Latin for pending litigation, litigation pending. If there's a lis pendens on the property, it's a legal stop. We find this again in the public records. And the lis pendens is a legal stop. They're telling buyers, stop, don't buy this property because there's a current lawsuit going on. And at the end of this lawsuit, it may not be the seller's property. They may lose the property. And if the seller doesn't own the property, then they can't sell it, right? So how do we stop the shady seller from trying to convey it to somebody else? We put a lis pendens on. We put a legal stop. Question came in about covenants. Is that not the same as the HOA? Some places have covenants without an HOA. HOAs are just meant to manage the property. Some have covenants. I mean, they all have covenants, but some have an HOA managing, some don't. Some just have covenants. So lis pendens, just a legal stop. It's a warning. Don't buy this property because it's in the throes of a lawsuit. At the end of the lawsuit, determine if you can buy it or not. Another encumbrance is called a writ of attachment. A writ of attachment, there's been a court order to seize the property. The judge is sending the sheriff to come take the property. They may even be on their way. So how do they prevent the shady seller from selling it to the unsuspecting buyer? They put a legal stop on it, a writ of attachment. Do not buy this property. The court is getting ready to take it, if they haven't already. Okay. Are we doing good so far? So far, so good? Okay. Another encumbrance is an easement. You guys heard of easements? An easement is a non-possessory interest. You don't have ownership. You just have the right to be there. Why do you have the right to be there? Because you have an easement. I don't know of a single property that doesn't have an easement. You guys like electricity? Do you like water? There's an easement on your property for the water company to run their lines. There's an easement on your property for the electric company to run their wires on your property. So all properties have some kind of easement on it. Again, it's not ownership. It's just the legal right to use somebody else's land. You can't stop somebody from using the property if an easement has been granted. And there are two types of easements that we're going to talk about. The first type of easement is called a pertinent easement. Remember our big fancy word, appurtenant? What does that mean? It means it runs with the land. So an appurtenant easement is an easement that does what? An easement that runs with the land. An appurtenant easement affects two and only two tracts of land, side by side, they're touching. Pertinent easement affects two and only two side-by-side tracts of land. One tract of land is being used. Another tract of land is doing the using. The servient tenement is the tract of land being used. They're the ones that the easement runs over. The dominant tenement is the one that's doing the using. They're the ones that benefit from the using. They're using somebody else's land. So let's look at a picture. If you guys, on your textbook on page 56, I got lot A and lot B. In order for lot B to access the road, they have to put their driveway on lot A. I don't know why they can't tear the trees down. Let's just say the trees are protected and they can't be touched. For some reason, in order for lot B to access the road, their driveway runs over lot A. Lot A is the one being used. Do they benefit from this? No, they're the one being burdened. Lot B is the dominant. They're the one doing the using. They're the one benefiting from the easement. A lot of times how easements are created, now excuse me, because I'm no Bob Ross. But let's say you have a tract of land, and then you got the road. So let's say I own this parcel of land, and I wake up one day and I decide to subdivide it. I think I'm just going to take this parcel of land and I'm going to split it right down the middle. And now I have two tracts of land. I have tract A and I have tract B. I sell B to somebody, I've got to grant them an easement, right? I got to give them access to the road. We're going to talk about landlocking people in just a second. I can't landlock somebody. I cannot prevent somebody from coming on or off of their property. So a lot of times when we see an easement, and this is just an example, but this is probably a common example of why an easement like this would happen. You subdivide the land, you got to give the new owner, the new B, access to the road. The thing to understand about an impertinent easement is that it affects both tracts of land, both A and B. In this case, A would be the servient, B would be the dominant. Pertinent easements should be recorded. Let's run those down to the Register of Deeds. Let's put them on record. So anybody with a future interest in this property knows about these easements. They're pertinent. Does that mean they go away when the property is conveyed? No, they run with the land from one owner to the next to the next. So we record them so that they're enforceable. We'll talk all about recording in Unit 5, why we record. Another easement that we could see is an easement, pertinent easement is a party wall. So we talked about townhomes last week, row houses, and you have multiple homes connected, split only by a wall. That party wall, there's an easement. Both people have right to use that wall. Could also refer to shared driveway. I mean, check these guys out. They got several things going on, don't they? Not only do they have the shared driveway, but their garages have a party wall, right? They're sharing that one wall. Yeah, they got a whole lot going on. Okay, so how many tracts of land does an impertinent easement affect? You can show me, I can see you. Yep, 2, and only 2, always 2. Pertinent easement always affects 2 tracts of land side by side touching. Everybody good so far? So let's go ahead and take our break. When we come back, we're going to talk about our other type of easement. So let's take 10. All right. Diane, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Old, but I don't
Old,
remember
okay.
hitting it.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't skip you. If I miss you, just holler at me. I said I got you guys. I got page 1 and page 2 of you guys, so I try to toggle pages. All right, camera's on. If you're back, you can hear me. Take screenshots for attendance. See, Karen was on right as I was doing that. So let's do that one again, Karen. How about that? Okay. So 2 types of easements. Pertinent easement is one of them. Pertinent easement affects 2 tracts of land, 2 adjoining tracts of land. Okay. Another type of easement is called an easement in gross. An easement in gross can affect 1 tract of land. It can affect thousands of tracts of land. Okay. And please tell me you're back. I see you, but I'm not going to remember later. So an easement in gross could affect 1 tract of land. It could affect thousands of tracts of land. A personal easement in gross is going to affect one tract of land. An example of this would be, for example, me giving my buddy permission to come on my land and fish on my pond. A couple of you might have missed attendance. Please, if you're when in doubt, just tell me you're here anyway. But please make sure you tell me you're here. Personal easement, again, an example could be a friend that I want to let come fish on my pond. I could grant them a personal easement. I could give them permission to come fish on my pond. When I sell the property, the easement dies, right? The easement does not convey. So I sell the property, the new owner, my friend comes onto the new owner's property to fish on their land, on their pond. That's called trespassing. Everybody with me? They lost that permission to do that when I conveyed the property. Commercial easement in gross is probably the one that we see more common. When you think of a commercial easement in gross, think Duke Power Company. Think R&R Railroad. Commercial easement in gross is these companies have permission to put their power poles on your property or to run the railroad tracks on your property. They've created that easement through the courts generally. But they have that permission. And if Duke Power Company were to sell, let's say they're going to Duke sells to Julie's Power Company, the transfer of the easement is not automatic. If Duke Power Company were to sell to somebody else, the new owner would have to have that easement transferred. That's why they get attorneys to do something like that. The attorney would help make sure that the easement is transferred. It's not automatic. So if R&R Railroad sells, for example, if Duke Power Company sells, it's not automatic. It doesn't just happen. It's got to be transferred. It's got to be part of the deal. If I'm acquiring, if I'm buying Duke Power Company, you're darn right I'm going to make sure I get their power poles with it. Our picture on page 57, you can see our easement in gross affects both tracts of land. Those power poles run across lot A, they run across lot B. You guys ever seen a stretch of railroad tracks? I mean, how many properties do those things touch? They just go on and on and on. Y'all are going to run out your backyard with a sign and try to stop the train. They have permission to be there. Generally, there are three ways that we can create an easement. An express easement is created on purpose. Could be oral, could be in writing. If you want it to stick, it should be in writing. That party wall agreement is an express easement. Something's expressed, the terms have been clearly stated. An implied easement is created as a result of surrounding circumstances. It's implied that somebody should have access to the road. An implied easement would be an easement by necessity. Remember, I just said a few minutes ago, you can't landlock somebody. You can't prevent somebody from coming onto or off of their property. So if you subdivide that property, you can't deny them access to get to lot B. Remember that little picture I just drew? You cannot deny them access to get to lot B. That'd be an easement by necessity. Easements can also be created by operation of law. If the judge creates an easement, it's going to stick. With an easement by prescription, an easement is created because someone has been using the land for 20 or more years. They've been using the land for 20 or more years. they go to the judge and they say, I'm using this land anyway. Can't you create an easement by prescription for me? Judge is going to ask a series of questions, of course. But if you've been, the theory here is that if you've been using somebody else's land for 20 or more years, operational law, you may get the right to keep using that land. It may create an easement. When we get to Unit 5, we're going to take easement by prescription a step further. You may have the option of not only claiming to use somebody's property, but in Unit 5, we're going to learn that you may be able to take somebody's property. If you've been using it that long, if you've been using it 20 or more years. So we'll see this again when we get to Unit 5. Operation of law. Easements are created. Easements can also be terminated. Cessation of purpose. If whatever the reason the easement was created for ceases to exist, then the easement's terminated. Let's say there's a lumber company that has an easement to come on your land and get timber, to get wood. Once they've gotten all that wood, their purpose no longer exists, right? Once they've harvested all the wood and they've gotten all the timber, the easement would be terminated because the purpose no longer exists. Merger of parcels would terminate an easement. Remember our previous picture? 2 lots of land that are subdivided, lot A, lot B. This was A, this was B. Marginal of parcels says, what happens if B buys A? Does B mean an easement now? No, because they now own the whole property. They have purchased A, and now B is the sole owner. 1 lot. Easement was terminated because the land was merged. You can release the right of the easement if the dominant releases the right to the servient, or if you abandon the easement. If you stop using the property, abandonment would terminate. Again, a judge may have to determine how long, purpose, etc. But intention is going to be what the judge is looking for here. So easements can be created, easements can be terminated. Questions on easements? Pertinent easement and easement and gross. Again, I like the pictures, I like the examples. If you're looking at those, I think they help. Okay. I kind of told you guys a little fib. I said everything in Unit 3 was an encumbrance. And that's a teeny tiny fib. White lies are okay, right? We talk about license, mentioned briefly license at the bottom of page 58. A license is not an encumbrance. A license is very similar to an easement and gross. A personal easement and gross. You're entering somebody's land to, for example, fish on their pond. The difference is that one is an encumbrance and one is not. A license is not an encumbrance. A personal easement and gross is. Either way, when I sell my property, you no longer have the right to come fish in my pond. Now, can you go knock on the new owner's door and say, hey man, I fished on this pond, can I continue? Of course you can, but that's the point, you have to ask. You just show up on the pond, on the property and start fishing from the pond. That's called trespassing because you don't have permission to be there. Everything else in Unit 3 is an encumbrance. This is the one little exception. Another encumbrance that we talk about in Unit 3 is an encroachment. Encroachments are bad. When you see encroachment, see the word roach. Do we like roaches? Not generally. Encroachments are bad. With an encroachment, the improvement on your property extends onto somebody else's property. It crosses the property line into your neighbors. So your improvement is on their property. You've encroached on them. Why don't you tell us in the chat, what do you think would be the number one encroachment, probably the number one encroachment that we see the most common? There's a lot of good answers, but what would you think would be the number one? Driveways could be, of course, storage buildings, garages, absolutely. I think the most common encroachment is a fence, is the fence. Guys, the only thing you know by looking at a fence is that somebody put a fence there. You'd like to think that they had a survey done before they had the fence put up. You'd like to think that that could give you an idea of the property lines, but that's not always the case. Just because you see a fence does not mean that they had it surveyed. Just because you see a fence doesn't mean that that indicates their property lines. The people that live behind me put a fence up and they still have probably 5-6 feet of property left. So if you were going by the fence, my backyard looks a lot bigger than what it is. You guys with me? The only thing you know by looking at a fence is that somebody put a fence there. And so many times I have been showing property to buyers, and so many times we've walked out in the backyard and I've tried to talk to them about the importance of having a survey done to determine their property lines. And they say, Julie, I don't need a survey. Do you see that fence right there? That's going to tell me where my property line is. No, it does not work like that. A survey is the only way to tell us if we have an encroachment. We're going to talk about surveys in Unit 4. Trees are very common. Trees get real tricky. A couple of weeks ago when we had those storms come through and a lot of trees came down, you had one tree going over into the neighbor's property. And I tell you, neither insurance company wants to deal with it. So they're probably, I feel bad for those people when I see that, because they're probably in the throes of duking it out. Whose responsibility is it? So you had a survey done and they didn't discover that. Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. My husband's coworker came to work a couple months ago and said his neighbor put a fence up and then had the survey done. He kind of did it backwards, didn't he? And lo and behold, he had the survey done, and guess what? His brand new fence was an encroachment. His brand new fence was on my husband's coworker's property. You know what the guy did next? He went knocking on my husband's coworker's door and said, my fence is on your property. You need to pay to have it taken down. What do you think coworker said? I see you guys' reaction. What do you think coworker said? No. They're currently in the battle. They're in the throes of this battle. Why did he do the fence in the survey? I can't answer those questions, but he did. And now here we are. And you know what is really sad? The kids used to have play dates together. The wives used to hang out. All that is done because we're arguing over this fence. So it goes. Somebody lives next door to the sheriff. So yeah, you're definitely not going to make sure. Definitely make sure. Danielle's going through that right now. Is that with a fence? Halfway? Yeah, I got you. There's your, there, I see you, Danielle. So tree fell halfway. Was that your tree that fell in your neighbor's yard? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a huge tree and we have a fence that separates us, and it fell over. And from my knowledge, just kind of what I'm understanding, I am responsible for my side.
Is that what your insurance company is saying?
Yeah.
See, and that's where it gets, because everybody wants insurance. I mean, obviously, you know, take care of this. The bigger the tree, the more expensive it costs, right? So that's where things get tricky. And even like roots. I mean, you see the tree, but the roots pretty much go wherever they want to under the ground, right? So if the tree's on your neighbor's lot, I guarantee you have, if it's close enough, you have roots on yours. So it absolutely can get tricky. And I'll tell you guys, let's talk about this fence. Let's just say you've had two people living next door to each other for 15 years. And this guy knew that his fence was on his property, but you know, he's cool and we get along, so all is good. It's not a problem until it's a problem, right? Now, all of a sudden, this guy goes to sell, somebody buys, new owner, this guy shows up and says, hi, I'm your new neighbor, your fence is on my property. So it's one of those things that it's not usually a problem until it's a problem, and then it's a problem, something like a tree going down. With an encroachment, there's really, to my knowledge, there's only two ways to deal with it. Because, let me say this third bullet point here, encroachments make both titles unmarketable. It negatively affects both, the one where the fence is and the one where who owns the fence. And really, I only know two ways to make this go away. You either tear the fence down or you create an easement. You either tear the fence down or you give that fence permission to be there. I'll be interested to see what happens with my husband's coworker and what he's going to do. So let's look at a picture. This is an encroachment. You can see the property line is red, and just next door is this big garage. And look at that thing. That's huge. There's like this whole wing of the garage. It's not like a corner or a wall. I mean, it's like a whole section. That is an encroachment. And guys, as real estate agents, I'm not a surveyor. How do I properly identify those property lines to say if we have an encroachment? That's why we have a surveyor. Again, we're going to talk about that in Unit 4. Remember what I said, a lot of this class is teaching you just enough to be dangerous. A lot of this class is teaching you, who do you call when this happens? What do you do when this happens? So if you're wanting to list, or you're working with a buyer that's purchasing each property, you need to know that we need to get a surveyor involved. Remember, I'm just a real estate agent, not an attorney, not an appraiser. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a surveyor. I am just a real estate agent. Questions on encroachments. Encroachments are bad. Okay. Yeah, Clara.
Yes, just to caveat off of that about encroachment. So, you know, should our talk track be then, as we do address the client's questions about the boundaries of their lands, should our talk track automatically be, you need to get a survey? Because I am not, I'm unable to, unless there's a survey done, I cannot accurately tell you the boundaries of the property you're about to purchase.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. As we learn in Unit 4, all buyers are encouraged to have a survey done. And again, we'll talk more about it. But anytime anybody's buying anything with land, they're encouraged to have a survey done. Because if something like this comes up on the survey, the closing attorney is going to address it before settlement, right? Before that property is conveyed. So this is why they do their big, I mean, the attorney does so much to help protect the buyer. The surveyor does this. They can identify encroachments, easements, flood plains if you're in a flood zone. So again, we'll talk more about that in Unit 4. But yeah, that was pretty spot on. Yep. Question came in, after having a survey done, does it become public record? No, that is property of the person that ordered it. So if the buyer has a survey done before they buy, that's their personal property. So they don't have to share that with anybody. Yeah, you're a little dark, but I can thank you for checking in on the chat. Okay. So the rest of this unit talks about taxes. So we're going to have, Claire, is that a new question or did I miss?
This might be a silly question, but does a survey expire at all? Okay.
No, and they could change. So yep, we'll talk about it. Hang on to that. Yep, I got you now. Hang on to that till unit 4. And we'll get there. Yep. Okay, the rest of unit 3 is about taxation. Property taxes are an encumbrance. They impact the property. So we're gonna have a little conversation about taxation. Then we're getting into our first math week. So we're gonna do our math tonight. Everybody go calculator shopping this weekend? Everybody get you a nice new shiny calculator. If you haven't, please go. Nicole's is pink. I want a pink calculator. So we're gonna start our little bit of math tonight. But before we do that, let's just talk about taxes. Property taxation in North Carolina. First off, understand all properties in the state of North Carolina are subject to taxation. All of them. All properties. We all get to pay taxes. And in North Carolina, we have something called ad valorem property taxes. Ad valorem just means that our property taxes are determined per market value. The tax assessor determines market value, determines assessed value. They have a process. I think it's really important out the gate that we understand that the process for determining market value for taxes is not the same process for determining value for loan origination. So if you're getting a loan, you're going to have an appraisal done. That's a different process than determining market value for taxes. When the assessor is determining market value for taxes, they're not going into individual homes. They may not even be driving down the street. They're looking at a whole city. Or if it's a big city, maybe they take the city and they break it up into 4 quadrants, right? And they look at that. They look at huge areas, not just one particular property. So the process is different. Unit 17 is our appraisal unit. So we'll talk all about the appraiser's process and how they determine value to originate a loan when we get into unit 17. All we're focusing on right now is the tax part of it. And in North Carolina, our taxes are expressed as the tax rate per 100. Sometimes when you're doing math, the word per means divide. And in this case, the word per means divide. So if the problem tells you that your tax rate is 0.83 per 100, how do you find that tax rate? Take your brand new shiny calculator, 0.83 divided by 100 to get a tax rate of 0.0083. So the tax rate per 100, whatever number they give you, divided by 100, ad valorem is per 100. Taxes in North Carolina are regulated by the North Carolina Machinery Act. All cities, counties, municipalities, they're all free to set taxes however they want. The Machinery Act kind of puts a ceiling on it. They do regulate, they have wiggle room. They can work within certain parameters. The Machinery Act sets those parameters. So the Machinery Act gives us standards for real property taxation, how property taxes are assessed, how they arrive at the assessed value, the appraisal process, the tax appraisal process. And then it regulates some tax exempt status. Some properties are exempt from paying the full amount. They still probably pay something, but just not the full. So like not-for-profit, non-for-profit organizations, schools maybe have tax exempt statuses. Sometimes seniors can qualify for tax exempt statuses. All regulated by the North Carolina Machinery Act. Yeah, Nicole?
How would you suggest, because the math part, not remembering like the different equations, the percentages and all of that, how would you best, I guess trying to memorize which, when you get presented with a problem, which equation or percentage or whatever goes with that.
You're a little ahead of me. So we'll get to the math in just a second, but the best way to learn the formulas, in my opinion, put it on a flashcard, put it on an index card and quiz yourself over and over and over again. So we'll get there. We'll get to that math in just one second. Okay. So the Machinery Act. Again, assessment for tax purposes is a different process than appraisal. In North Carolina, our assessed value is 100% of market value. So whatever the tax assessors determine market value is, that's also your assessed amount. In other states, the assessed value may be less than market value. It might be a percentage of market value. Here's the deal, you guys. Your test questions aren't going to give you both. Always do what the problem tells you. If it tells you your assessed value is 65% of your market value, then you figure the assessed value by determining 65%, for example, the market value. Don't argue with the problem. Don't say, well, I'm standing in North Carolina, so it's 100%. Always do what the problem tells you. So North Carolina, we use our ad valorem taxes, something per 100. Other states may use something called a mill. A mill is 1/1000th. So ad valorem is per 100. Mill is 1/1000th. So if the problem tells you have 15 mills, how do you get to your tax rate? Take 15 divided by 1,000 to get a tax rate of 0.015. Again, they're going to give you one or the other. They're mean, but they're not cruel. So they'll either give you ad valorem or mills. They may or may not tell you that ad valorem is per 100. They may or may not tell you that a mill is of 1,000. Ad valorem is per 100. Mill is 1/1000. What's the opposite of divide? Multiply, right? So if the problem tells you that the tax rate is 0.015 and asks you what the mill is, you take 0.015 and multiply by 1,000 to get 15 mills. So they could give you mills and ask you what the rate is. They could give you rate and ask you what the mills is. Everybody with me? The opposite of divide is multiply. So just to sum it up, what we've just talked about so far, North Carolina, we use a tax rate, something per 100. Taxes are based on the assessed value. Other states can use a mill, which is 1/1000th. The assessed value may be less than the market value. We're getting to see our formula in just a minute. And what you're going to see is that we're going to be solving for the assessed value. That's the formula. So if they give you the assessed value, or if they give you the assessed value less than the market value, we're going to use the assessed value. Any questions so far? I know we just got started. Any questions so far? If you guys will, please turn with me in your book to page 64. We're going to get back into North Carolina. We're going to talk about a taxation timetable. You have this very thing on page 64. I want you guys to do a few things real quick so we can better understand this taxation timetable. You see the January 1st, January 5th, and on down the timeline to December 31st. Everybody see that? At the beginning of the year, somewhere near January 1st, on the left-hand side of the timeline, I want you guys to write 2022. What year is it right now? It's 2022. Under the January 5th date, everybody see January 5th, last year's tax must be paid. Under the January 5th date, write 2023. So when we look at this taxation timetable, we're looking at this year, except for the January 5th date. The January 5th date is next year. So every year on January 1st, all property in North Carolina is subject to taxation. Happy New Year. Every single one of us are subject to taxation, which means on January 1st, we all owe taxes for this year. Now, don't whip out your checkbook just yet, okay? But when we wake up on January 1st, we all owe property taxes for the year. Fast forward just a bit. Let's go to July 1st. On July 1st, the new tax rate is set. We're going to learn in just a second. The assessed value doesn't change every year, but the tax rate can. That's what I use, 0.83. Is that what I just said? 0.83 per 100. We set the new tax rate every July 1st. The bills go out in August, and the taxes are due and payable on September 1st of this year. Failure to pay your taxes this year by January 5th next year will put a lien on your property because you're delinquent. And that's a real property lien. So who's going to get paid first? Remember our superior liens. So failure to pay your taxes this year means on January 5th, maybe January 6th, they file a lien on the property. So anybody with a future interest in this property knows there's a tax lien on the property. Remember, it's specific. So we want the current owner to pay that, all delinquent taxes, before they convey the property. How do we ensure that the current owner pays taxes before they convey? We file the lien. So that January 5th day. Where are my homeowners on the call? You guys don't sit down and write a check out every year for taxes, do you? Your taxes are collected and party, well, maybe you do, but usually for the most part, if you have a mortgage, your lender's collecting a portion of your taxes each year. And at the end of the year, they pay your taxes on your behalf, right? What if you're a cash buyer and you never had a lender? What if you paid that mortgage off and you're no longer dealing with the lender? Is the lender paying your taxes now on your behalf? No, that's all on you. So if you're a homeowner, you may not know that this happens. If you're a homeowner, you may get a letter once a year from Guilford County that says your taxes have been paid. And I think, well, gee, that's nice. They were paid on behalf by my lender that's been taking them out of my mortgage payment every month this year. Yeah, Claire?
So as we just found out, the other exception to that is if you get a land loan, that does not include the tax rate. But I don't know why this confuses me so much, but for January 5th, last year's tax must be paid. Why are we writing 2023 and not 2021?
Because the year now is 2022. This is 2022, except for January 5th, which is next year. So if you don't pay 2022's taxes, January 5th of 2023, they put a lien.
Okay.
We changed years. Yeah, Happy New Year. We changed years.
But I was thinking that 2023 somehow was tied to last year, but it's not. It's okay. Thanks.
So 2023 says last year was what? 2022. Last year's taxes were not paid. So to your point, if you didn't pay 2021 taxes, for some reason you just decided you weren't paying taxes in 2021, congratulations. It's after January 5th of the next year. You now have a lien on your property. When will it get paid? Before you can convey that property. Does that answer? Okay. Does it all have to be paid in full by next year? Well, each year they're paid in full, but if you're delinquent, it has to be paid in full before you can convey. So before, again, when you're conveying property, before you close, you got to pay off all of your liens. So if you haven't paid taxes in 2021 and you didn't pay them in 2020, maybe you didn't pay them in 2019, all that's going to be paid before you can convey that property. Pay your bills. That's just kind of what it, right? Pay your taxes, pay your mechanics. This is how we can avoid all this. Question came in, how would a homeowner know that their taxes have been paid? Because the county usually sends you a letter. Like I said, I get a county every year or a letter every year from Guilford County that says your taxes have been paid. I think, well, goodness, that's nice. If I ever pay that property off, you know what I'm going to get from Guilford County? You owe me money. You owe me for your taxes. Yeah. Yep, like your car. So Tara's has on her year end. So your mortgage company, Tara, from your mortgage company, you're saying you get a letter that says your taxes have been paid. So yeah, they'll communicate with you, of course. Yeah, Diane. Yep.
Is there ever a situation where like the mortgage company doesn't pay enough and you get like a bill?
Could be, if they're not collecting enough, because they're collecting X amount from you throughout the year, right? They're collecting January, February, March, April, May, June. We get to July and they increase the tax rate, or maybe they reassess the property, right? So could be that throughout the year they haven't been taken out enough. So sure, absolutely. Everybody good with me so far? The tax rate and the assessed value are two different things. Okay, so when it comes to the assessed value, in North Carolina, we have an octennial reappraisal, which means the assessed value can be reassessed every 8 years. Octennial means 8. Please understand, the tax rate can change from year to year to year. When do we change the tax rate? July 1st. The assessed value, property is only reassessed every 8 years. The county or the city or the municipality may decide to do a horizontal adjustment every 4 years. By a horizontal adjustment, they might just say everybody's going to have a 0.4% increase across the board. So everybody in this county or this municipality, just 0.4%, everybody. That's a horizontal adjustment. Forsyth County doesn't send letters? Oh, they should. That's a nice letter to get. Anytime you get a letter that said, this bill has been paid on your behalf. Thank you. We'll talk all about the lenders and their process and what they do and why they do. Our financing units are units 14 and 15. As I said earlier, appraisal process to determine appraisal to originate a loan is different than an assessment process to determine tax value. It's a totally different process. Some buyers and sellers like to think that the list price or the sales price is related to the tax value, and it's not even a little bit. That's one way we can help educate the public. Right now we're in a seller's market, which means home prices they're up. Home prices, home values are up. And some buyers are looking at that tax value going right now, but how do they think they can charge me X amount when the tax value is only? And the reason being is because the two are no way related. They're not the same thing at all. There's the process to determine the assessed value for taxes, and there's the process to determine the market value of a property when you're originating a loan. Again, Unit 17 is our appraisal for originating a loan. So we'll spend time talking about that. Right now, what we're focusing on is the assessed value. So real property taxes are one superior lien. Another superior lien is our government special assessments. So if the government is going to make a public improvement on your property, they may issue an assessment. Examples of government special assessments, maybe they are installing sidewalks or street lighting. Maybe they're hooking an entire neighborhood up to public sewer. If they're doing a public improvement on your property, they could issue a special assessment. You get to help them pay for that because it's your property that they're improving. So the real property taxes and the special assessments are our superior liens, which means they get paid when? They get paid first. They are the first one standing in line with their hand out. And after then, it's everybody paid in the order in which it's recorded, except for the mechanic's lien. It was paid in the order in which the work began. Questions? Y'all are just ready to get in the math, aren't you? Y'all ready for your first math? Come on now. You ready for your first math formula? Here it is. And we get to use a T-bar. Take just a minute and jot this T-bar down because we're going to refer back to it. While you're learning, you can refer to it. Question came in. How do I learn the formulas? My suggestion is put all formulas on an index card. One, that repetition of writing it over and over and over again is going to help you stick. Put it on an index card to memorize it. And the other way you learn it is by practice. When it comes to math, practice, practice, practice. And rest assured, I got plenty of practice for you guys. Remember, our T-bar gives us 3 formulas. Gives us our annual tax bill. We look at our assessed value, and we look at our tax rate. Knowing the formula is 80% of the battle. And I'm not kidding. If you don't know the formula, you don't know what to do with the numbers. If you don't know what to do with the numbers, you're just playing around on your calculator. You're wasting precious test time. So we got to know the formula. Also, knowing the formula can help us rule out any tricks that they like to give you. Sometimes they like to trick you. And for example, one way they may like to trick you is by asking what the monthly tax bill is. What are you solving for, though? You're solving for annual. So if they ask for monthly, you got to take this a step further and do what? I see all your mouths going. You guys are cute. How many months in a year? 12. So if they give you, if you solve for annual and they want monthly, once you find annual, divide by 12 to get monthly. Mark my words. The annual tax bill will be an option. It will be A, B, C, or D. I promise you. So knowing the formula, it can help not be tricked. Don't let them trick you. So know the formula, memorize it, write it down over and over and over again. or just flat out practice. Practicing will help you. Okay, everybody have the T-bar again. We're going to refer back to this. We're getting ready to do some math. Everybody have it jotted down where you can look at. Guys, none of you are going to leave this call today being experts on finding the assessed value. So don't be, so hard on yourselves. We'll go through this. You guys refer back to the formula while you're learning. That's another way you learn, is you refer back to your formulas. Don't kick yourself because you don't know it just yet. Okay, refer back to it until you learn it. So I'm getting ready to take a break in a minute, but I do just want to say this real quick. As we said earlier, there's one of two ways to calculate taxes. So in North Carolina, we look at our tax rate per 100. So for example, if the problem tells you the city tax rate is 0.73 per 100, in this case, the word per is just a fancy way of saying divide. So how do I get my tax rate? On your calculator, you take 0.73 divided by 100 equals, and you get a tax rate, city tax rate of 0.0073. One way that your homework likes to trick you, cities are located in counties. Yes. So your homework may give you a city tax rate, and then it may give you a county tax rate of, say, 0.46 per 100. I'm just kind of making stuff up. If the property is located in the city limits, you're going to look at both the city and the county tax rate. But what if the property is located outside of the city limits? If you don't live in the city's limits, are you going to pay city taxes? No. If you don't live in the city, then you only have to pay county taxes. Sometimes they give you more information than what you need. They're trying to distract you. What's a distractor's job? To distract you. So this is another big benefit of knowing the formula. Rule out the distractors and read. Just read. Is it asking you, is the property located in the city? Is it located out the city? We're all in a county. Every property is in a county. So you know you're always going to pay county taxes, right? So now the question is, do you pay city taxes or not? Yeah, Danielle?
Okay, you kind of clarified it for me. So in the instance that they are asking for county tax, I'm gonna always include the city. Can you repeat it?
Where's the property located? Is it in the city? Then if it's in the city, you pay city and county. But if it's outside of the city, you don't have to pay city taxes. You just have to pay county taxes. And the problem will tell you what you need to know. You guys just need to read. It's there. I promise you. What you need to solve this problem is there. But you guys need to read and you need to know the formula. Okay. So tax rate per 100 is what we do in North Carolina, as we said earlier. Other states may use a mill. A mill is 1/1000th. So if the problem tells you it's 17 mills, how do we find the tax rate? You take 17 divided by 1,000 to get a rate of 0.017. Again, they're not going to give you both. They're going to give you one or the other. Is that good news? I try to give good news when I can. They're not going to give you ad valorem and mill and expect you to know which one to use. If they give you ad valorem, it's per 100. If they give you mill, it's 1/1000th. As I said earlier, the opposite of divide is multiply. So if they give you a rate of 0.017 and they ask you what the mill is, you just take 0.017 times 1,000 and you get 17 mills. Danielle, is that a new hand? Old hand? Okay. All right. Let's take a break. We come back. We're going to do some math. Get your calculator if you don't have it with you. All right. We got it for the last hour. Y'all got your calculators, your pencil sharpened. So the way we do math, generally we'll work a couple together, and then I'll kind of turn you loose and let you work one or two on your own. And then of course I got lots of practice for you, homework. Because how are you going to get it? Guys, you're not going to get it by sitting here watching me. I make it look really easy. The true test is, can you do it on your own without me? Because guess what you're doing on your test? Doing it on your own without me. Okay, so I got to wean you guys off of me. And that's why I give you lots and lots and lots of practice. So camera's on. Let's do our screenshot for attendance. I smile. I started this a couple classes ago. I noticed I actually had a student that posed for me, and I called him out on it one day. I said, that's hilarious. So now it becomes a fun thing to do. I catch you guys in some interesting, me too, in some interesting shots when I do screenshots for attendance. I'm usually talking. I've noticed I talk a lot. All right. So talked about our mills. So here we go. I'm going to put a problem up. We're going to go through it together. Just kind of sit back and take it in. Like I said, we're going to work a few together, and then I'll turn you loose and let you work a few on your own. When you see a math problem, the very first thing, I actually want you guys doing math problems. When you see them, I want you reading math problems 3 times. The first time you see a math problem, just read it. Just read it. Don't pick up your calculator just yet. Don't do anything. Just read the problem. The second time you go through the problem is when you can put pencil to paper, is when you can pick up your calculator and start doing stuff. The third time you read the math problem is when you think you have an answer. I'd like you to go back and read the problem again to make sure the answer you have is the answer that they are looking for. Okay, so we saw a problem. First thing we're going to do is just read. Calculate the annual property tax due for a property in Forsyth County with a property tax rate of 1.01 per 100 and an assessed value of $250,000. So you're looking at your formula. I saw that problem and I read that problem and I saw the word rate or percent, and my brain said, ooh, I can probably use a T-bar. So the very first thing I did was throw down a T-bar. When you're doing these, when you're doing math problems, I always want you to start with where you want to end. What do I mean by that? When you're doing a math problem, the first thing I want you to do is identify your X. What is the problem asking? What are you trying to solve for? So what's the problem asking me? It wants my annual property taxes. So knowing the formula tells me that my X is the number on top. You guys looking at your T-bar that you just wrote down? Where's annual property taxes? It's on top. Now I know my X, and that is my only focus. How do I rule out distractors? Because if this information doesn't get me to my X, then it's a distractor. So identify your X first, because that's all you care about. Now that I've identified my X, I can start filling in the rest of my T-bar. Again, you guys look at your formula, look at your T-bar. My assessed value is $250,000. And my tax rate is 1.01 per 100. So on your calculators, take 1.01 divided by 100, and I get a rate of 0.0101. So I have my assessed value of 250,000. I have my tax rate of 1.01 per 100. So I took 1.01, per means divide, 1.01 divided by 100, and I got 0.0101. When looking at the T-bar, my up-down line means multiply. So how do I solve for X? I take 250,000 times 0.0101 and I get annual taxes of $2,525. Knowing the formula, I'm not kidding, is like 80% of the battle. I'm not kidding when I say that. If you don't know the formula, you don't know what to do with those numbers. These only get bigger from here. So for example, if we read the same problem, but we throw a distractor in it. Same problem. Calculate the annual property tax due for a property in Forsyth County with a property tax rate of 1.01 per 100, a market value of $285,000, and an assessed value of $250,000. What's your formula call for? What's your formula want? Does your formula want the assessed value or the market value? It wants your assessed value, doesn't it? Which means in this case, the market value is your distractor. That's information that I don't need. How did I know that? Because I know my formula. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's look at another one. Calculate the annual property tax due for a property in Forsyth County with a property tax rate of 1.01 per 100, a market value of $127,000, and an assessed value of 85% of market value. I read the problem, I saw rate or percent, and my brain said, ooh, I can use a T-bar. Identify my X first. What am I solving for? What's the only thing that I care about? Annual property taxes. Tells me the market value is 127,000. Is that what my formula says? Market value? No. My assessed value is 85% of market value. Who remembers when you see the word of in a word problem, what does that mean? What's the word of mean? You guys are cute. Multiply, right? So my assessed value is 85% of my market value. What's my market value? 127,000. I find 85% of that. 127,000 times 85% gives me an assessed value of $107,950. Isn't that what my formula is asking for, is my assessed value? So I had to find, see, sometimes I got to do work before I can use the T-bar. Sometimes I have to use the problem to get to using the T-bar. And now to find my rate, I take 1.01 per 100. 1.01 divided by 100. Get my rate, 0.0101. Up, down line still means multiply. So I take my assessed value of $107,950 times 0.0101 to get annual taxes of $1,090. I'm going to round a little bit, and 30 cents. Identify your X, solve your X, know the formula. Questions? Anything? How'd you get the 107,950? How'd I get the 0.0101? Okay. Isn't this fun? Let's look at another one. What is the assessed value of a property located in Kernersville with a tax rate of 0.85 per 100 and an annual tax bill of $3,371? I've read the problem. I saw rate or percent. I know I can use a T-bar. Now, what is the problem asking me for? Now, what's my X? Now I need to find the assessed value. So now, because you have your formula in front of you while you're learning it, your X goes in the bottom left. Identify your X first. And now fill in the rest of what do you know? I know my annual tax bill goes on top. I know my tax rate is 0.85 per 100. To get 0.0085. The back fourth line on the T-bar means divide. So on your calculator, you take 3,331, divide it by 0.0085. And I get an assessed value of 396,500, and I'm just going to round $88. Know the formula, know what you're solving for. Questions? I'm getting ready to cut you guys loose. Questions before I do that? Does everybody have that formula written down nearby where you can rely on it? Okay. Why don't you guys all go ahead and set your chat to a private chat to just me. Share your answer with me and me only. I'd like to hear from all of you so I can see how we're doing. I'm going to put a question up on the board. I'll give you guys about 4 minutes or so we can work it together. You guys will do it and then we'll come back together and do it together. But I want all of you to tell me in a private chat, A, B, C, or D. Do about 30 more seconds, 45 more seconds. Okay. Does everybody have something? Let's try to look at it. So let's go through this together. First, we just read the problem. The current market value for property is $135,000. For tax purposes, it is assessed at 60% of market value. The tax rate is 2.45 per 100 of assessed value. What is the annual tax liability? I've read the problem. I saw the word rate or percent. For the most part, when we see rate or percent, we can use a T-bar. What am I solving for? Let's identify my X. I'm solving for my annual tax liability, my annual tax bill, which is the number on top. So I started with where I want to end. What do I want to end with? Finding my annual tax bill. To have everybody so far. Yeah.
How you know where you gonna put the X at?
Because I'm going to go back for 1 second. Because we know the formula. So the formula tells me that my annual tax bill goes on top.
Okay.
Okay. So knowing that formula, you just reiterated my point. Knowing that formula I'm not kidding. It's 80% of the battle. How do you know where the X goes? Because you know that formula. Yep. So will always be X on top when I'm solving for my annual tax liability. What if I'm solving for assessed value? What if I'm solving for tax rate? The X goes knowing the formula and whatever I'm solving for. Okay.
Only the annual is when it's on top.
What if I'm solving for assessed value? Now where's the X go? It goes on the bottom left. What if I'm solving for tax rate? Now where does the X go? It goes on the bottom right. You guys with me? Alicia, I cannot see you. Technical difficulties. I get it, it happens. Okay. So now we fill in the rest of the T-bar. Fill in the rest of it. So the number that goes on the bottom left is my assessed value. The problem tells me that it's assessed at 60% of market value. What's the word of mean? Of means multiply. So how do I find my assessed value? I take 60% of the market value. My market value is 135,000 times 60% gives me an assessed value of $81,000. And then I look for my tax rate. My tax rate is 2.45 per 100. Per just means divide. So 2.45 divided by 100 gives me 0.0245, which is the number that I use here, my tax rate. Now the last step is to do what? What's my up-down line mean? My up-down line means multiply. So I take 81,000 times 0.0245, and I get an annual tax bill of $1,985. If you got it, good. If you didn't, do you see where you went wrong? This is why we do these, and this is why we practice. Make the mistakes now. Work the kinks out now. So if you didn't get it, all I ask is that you learn. All I ask is that you see.
Did you round it?
Yeah, it was 1984.5.
Okay.
the problem told me to round. So yeah, I took 1984.5 and rounded up to 1985. Questions on this one? Everybody good? Everybody hanging in there with me? I like to liken math to kids learning how to walk. Have you guys ever had the privilege of watching a kid learn how to walk? They're kind of like, they look like little Frankensteins, right? They're like, oh, kind of all over the place. When kids are learning how to walk, do they fall down sometimes? And what do they do when they fall down? Do they just sit there and say, oh, well, guess I'm not going to walk? Or do they get up and try it again and again and again until they're walking? Are there tears involved? Sometimes there are. It's okay to cry. It's okay. But get up and try it again. And again, this is why I give you guys so much practice with the math, because I want you to work these kinks out before you get to your exams. Make the mistakes now. That's why I give you guys so much practice. A question came in, do you always round up? I mean, in this case, the problem told me to, right? But again, they're not going to, C is not going to be 1985 and D is not going to be 1985.4.5. Those answer choice, they're not going to give you both the rounded and the unrounded number. And they're mean, but they're not cruel. Okay. Questions? Tears? Not yet, right? All right. Well, 0.5 tells you round up. Okay. And you don't have 1984 as a choice here too, right? So we can hopefully look at that. All right. Let's let you guys try another one. Once again, tell me in a chat, private chat, A, B, C, or D. I was just getting ready to say, it looks like a couple of you may want to go back and read the problem a third time and make sure the answer you have is the answer they're looking for. Give you about 30 more seconds. Okay. Tricked a couple of you, didn't it? So once you have an answer, before you get excited and you put A down, go back and read the problem again. Make sure the answer you have is what they're looking for. So this one says a market value of a house is 84,500. Taxes are assessed at 35% of market value. The tax rate is 30 mils. What are the monthly taxes? How do I get to monthly? What's my formula tell me? To get to monthly, I first have to solve for annual. Your formula solves for annual. You have to take that answer a step further, divide by 12 to get monthly. Tricky, tricky. Is the annual an answer option? Of course it is. Absolutely it is. So we've identified our X. I'm going to start with looking for my annual taxes. It tells me that the assessed value is 35% of market value. Market value is 84,500. They're going to do an assessed value of 35%. I want to live in this county. So 84,500 times 35%. Says they're going to do an assessed value of $29,575. So my assessed value is $29,575. Mill is what? Mill is 1/1000. So I take 30 divided by 1,000, which gives me a rate of 0.03. So to solve for annual property taxes, I take 0.03, the up down line means multiply, times 29,575 times 0.03. So I get annual taxes, 887.25. The answer is A, yes? No. What do I do now? Now that I have an answer, I go back and read the problem for a third time and make sure the answer that I have is what I'm looking for. So I solve for annual, they want monthly. So how do I get to monthly? Divide by 12. When I divide by 12, I get monthly taxes. And again, I'm just rounding of C. Every month this year, taxes are $73.94. Nicole.
As soon as you started doing the last part, I figured out, I'm like, oh, it was monthly. Yeah.
Tricky, tricky.
Yep.
So, every single word means something. Guys, miss the problem because you don't know how to do it. Don't miss the dang problem because you just don't divide by 12. How frustrating is that, right? Again, if you didn't see it that time, that's good. What should that tell you? Danielle just told us in the chat. Thank you, Danielle. Really have to slow down and read. Really, thank you. Have to slow down and read. Is it easy to get in a hurry and fly through these and read too fast and skip something and something important like monthly? And I think as we've learned, the annual is an option. So you see that 887.25 and you go, the answer's A. And you just missed it. Not because you don't know how to do it, but because you didn't slow down and read. Practice, practice, practice. And again, you guys, nobody's leaving this call tonight as an expert in finding annual taxes or assessed value. Nobody is. So don't be so hard on yourselves. While you're learning, rely on your formula. While you're practicing, use your formula. Remember, we're all just building up to the big show, to your exams. Questions? I feel like some of you want to throw rotten tomatoes at me or something right now. I can see it on your face. Guys, I could make this stuff really easy. I could. But what kind of disservice would that be doing to you guys? Remember, my job is to prepare you for those exams. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. What we just did with the taxes is only one piece of it. So when we get to unit 12, we're going to do more with taxes. So right now, you guys just put your pencils down. Everybody just put your pencil. Let's all take a big deep breath together. You guys ready? All right, just put your pencils down. Just sit back. Everything I'm getting ready to say, we're going to talk about again in unit 21, but I just want to give you an idea of where we're going, an idea of what we're going to do with these taxes. So when we get to unit 21, we're going to introduce you to something called proration. And when you're prorating, you're just dividing something equally, proportionately, I should say, between two parties. It just makes it fair for both parties. So as an example of something that we prorate are our annual property taxes at closing. Think about it. You have a house to sell. You sell your house in May. Is it fair for you to have to pay the entire year tax bill? Everybody shake your head, no, that's not fair. Why? Because you didn't own the property the whole year. You owned it part of the year, and the buyer, the new owner, owns it the rest of the year. So how do we make taxes fair the year of closing? We prorate it. We divide it proportionally between the two parties. And we'll learn that, well, other than taxes, other things that we typically prorate between the buyer and the seller at settlement, this year's property taxes, whatever year we're splitting, HOA dues, we're going to see prorated. HOA dues could be monthly, they could be quarterly, they could be annually. So if, for example, you have monthly HOA dues and you sell your house today on January 11th, again, I ask you, is it fair for you to be responsible for the entire month of January's HOA dues? Shake your head, no, that's not fair. How do we make it fair? We prorate it. Another thing that we see prorated, if a buyer buys, and we haven't talked about this yet, but we'll get there. If a buyer buys in North Carolina with an existing lease, they buy honoring that existing lease. So they get the lease, they get the tenant, which means we would get to prorate this month's rent as well. So real property tax is what we focus most on. We just learned how to find annual real property taxes. And again, when we get to unit 21, we're going to learn how to prorate that annual tax bill. Okay, kind of a preview of where we're heading eventually. Y'all want some good news? In pre-licensing world, every single month has 30 days. 30 times 12 is 360. So in pre-licensing world, how many days are in January? 30. In pre-licensing world, how many days are in October? 30. Apparently in pre-licensing world, we don't get to have a Halloween, do we? Because October 31st doesn't exist. Every month has 30 days. 30 times 12 gives you 360. We just learned how to take our annual taxes and convert them to monthly. How would you take your annual taxes and convert to daily? Take your annual and divide by 360. Okay, so we're going to be playing with these numbers. Again, monthly, You take the annual and you divide by 12. Everybody with me? We're always solving for the annual, but we may need to take that a step further. We may need to divide by 12 to get monthly, or divide by 360 to get daily. So let's look at just an example together. Again, pencils are down. We're just taking it all in. A property is located in Davie County and is subject to ad valorem tax rate of 80 cents per $100 of value. The property's assessed tax value is $172,500. Using a 30-day year, what are the daily property taxes owed on the home? I saw rate or percent. I can use a T-bar. In order for me to get to daily taxes, I first have to solve for what? I have to find annual. That's where it all starts. So my X, identify that first. My assessed value is $172,500. And my tax rate is 0.80 per 100. So I get a rate of 0.008. 172,000 times, I'm sorry, 172,500 times 0.008 gives me annual of 1,380. The problem wants daily. So I take my annual, divide it by 360 to get daily of $3.83. Every single day this year, the property has a tax of $3.83. We get to 21, we're going to learn what to do with that daily. We're going to learn how to prorate. We're going to learn how to make it fair. The seller's responsible for the period of time that they own the property. The buyer will be responsible for the period of time that they own the property. Who owes whom for what? That's what we're going to get to with Unit 21. So again, just to give you a little preview of where it's going. Learn how to do the annual property taxes now, because when we get to 21, we're going to expand on it. We're going to grow on it. Questions? Okay. That gets us through Unit 3. So remember, the beginning of each unit has key terms. Know what those words mean. Step 1 is know what the word means. Don't know what the word means? Look it up. Can't find it in your book? You guys have this phenomenal tool at your fingertips called Google. Key point review, your Cliff's Notes, your abbreviated version. It's pages 65 and 66. And then your student quiz for Unit 3 is 67 to 69. There is some practice math on the student quiz on pages 67 to 69. And when it comes to math, I cannot stress enough practicing. So let's all look first at the math concepts on page 63 to 64. The units that we discuss math have this math concept section. So the math concept section kind of explains what we're doing, maybe seeing it another way. Remember, you have the recording too, so you can always go back and watch this at your own pace. But the math concepts gives you another, explanation. You guys see about halfway down those 3 formulas in a row, boom, boom, boom. That's your T-bar. That's all we're looking at with the T-bar. So you have choices. You either memorize those 3 formulas or you learn the T-bar. Help me help you. Have I converted anybody yet? Do I have any T-bar fans yet? If I haven't gotten you yet, don't worry. I will. Don't worry. So you have choices. With the math, guys, we don't read math. We do math. Okay, you just don't read math. You actually do math. So look further down on page 63. Do you guys see example 1, example 2, example 3? You guys see what I'm talking about? What good does it do you to read that? If you were to sit there and read example 1 to yourself, what does that mean to you? Probably not much. How are you going to grasp example 1? Do it. Put pencil to paper and work it out. It helps you because it's extra practice, but it also helps you to see it in your own style of writing, to see it in your own way that you do it. So when you're working through these math concepts, don't just say example 1, if the tax rate is, don't read it, do it. Treat it like a real math problem. It's extra practice for you. In your textbook, on pages 803 to 808, there are 50 additional math problems. And when we cover the math in class, I pull out those numbers that relate to the math that we just did. So those 50 problems in the back of your book, numbers 6, 18, and 38, are the numbers that relate to what we just did. Let's call these like 201. So you master the math at the end of the unit. Maybe you work and learn, test, pass a little bit, which we're getting ready to look at. The problems in the back of the book tend to be a little bit trickier. So work up to them, build up to them, practice. Start with the end of the unit quiz, then go to learn, test, pass, then go to numbers 6, 18, and 38. Build up to it. If you're doing property taxes now, it's going to be, I don't know, a month before we get to unit 21. So it might be that this is a good place, right? If it's been a month since you saw it, maybe you want a refresher. Learn, test, pass, you have it. Your book, you have it. Pages 803, 805, you have it. Again, give me just 1 second. We'll look at some things and learn, test, pass. When it comes to math, I'm all about the practice, and here's why. One, because I've been doing math tutoring for, I don't know, 10 years, something like that, 12 years, something like that. So even before I was teaching, I was still doing math tutoring. So I've talked to you guys over the last 10, 12 years, and I know what you struggle with. And what I hear a lot is, I didn't do it. I read too fast. I skipped that word. Practicing will get rid of that. Practicing will take care of that. The other reason why I stress practicing so much, this is the learning pyramid. This is how adults learn. This is from what? The National Training Laboratory. Just from the math that we did, how much did you guys get? You just retained about 5 to 10% of it, right? Through lecture, through watching me, through reading the problems. Look how much you grow as you start doing it on your own. When you start doing it on your own in practice, now you're retaining 75% of the material. Isn't that a lot better than 5%? So practicing on your own, even if you sat there and said, oh, that's easy, I got it. Please hear me when I say it's really easy to watch me do it. The true test to yourself is, can I do it without Julie? Okay, so even if you're good, prove to yourself that you're good. Do this practice. Not every single unit has math, but those of them that do, I have plenty of practice for you guys. Rest assured, you're not going to go without practice. Let me also say one more thing about the math. The math alone can't fail you, which means there's not enough math on your test that if you miss all the math questions, you're going to fail the exam. If you miss all the math questions, you better be good at everything else, right? You're not failing, but if you can get some of the math, then that could give you a couple extra points here or there. So maybe if you don't grasp appraisals, I don't know, whatever. If you don't grasp financing, you can kind of use the math to leverage yourself. Okay, but don't put so much stress and focus on yourself. The math alone can't fail you. Everything else is equally, if not more important. We good? Everybody good? How's everybody doing? Getting some thumbs up? Ooh, 2 thumbs up. I'll take that. All right. So let's go into Learn, Test, Pass real quick. Let me show you what I speak of. So we just finished Unit 3. So in the Unit 3 material, Learn, Test, Pass, again, there's the online exam, like you answer the question, hit confirm, and it tells you, and I like this because it tells you get it right or wrong. It explains why the answer is right or wrong, so you can kind of use it as you go. I got an ownership and interest quiz in here. I really, really like this quiz. This is an application quiz. I think I've mentioned that's what you see on your exam. It's not so much what does this word mean, but you have to apply the word. You have to apply the concept. So this ownership and interest quiz and Learn, Test, Pass is really good. It's a flat PDF, but I have the answers for you. And then I have some extra math, tax math practice. So I got about, I don't know, 11 more problems in here to give you guys some of that practice in addition to what we find in the book. And then I do provide the solutions for you guys, but studying the solutions is not going to help you, right? Only use the solutions if you're trying to figure out if you got it right or not, and to help you if you get stuck. And then as with every unit, there's my PowerPoints. Questions? I think I'm going to wrap it up here today just because I don't want to start something new and then not being able to finish it. So you guys get a few minutes today. You are welcome. When we come together tomorrow, we're going to play a game. So we're going to start by playing a game. Come ready to play. And then we'll get into Unit 4. Unit 4 also has some math. So we'll work through that. After 4, we go on to 5. So tomorrow we'll get through 4 and probably get started on 5. So like I said, we keep going. So hang on to your hats, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 5:30. So let's see, a question came in.